Hey, it's News from Heaven. Today, enveloping spiritual fields surround us, and I have a general principle. When anything is surrounding me, I want to know what it is and how it works. And when we look at stuff that is spiritual, we get insight into the way that our own mind works. Because according to Swedenborg, all this stuff that we do or we deal with in the landscape of the mind, right? All the thoughts and feelings we have, the moods that shift through us, the interpretations of life, what we feel like we can't help focusing on, all of that has spiritual origin. To understand the spiritual is the collective unconscious and conscious and all of that. So the more we can understand conditions in the spiritual side of life, the more we can get, oh, that's why being human is the way it is like as strange and interesting and nice at times and not so nice at other times. So what are these enveloping spiritual fields and what role do they play in the day-to-day? I'm glad you asked, because that's exactly what we're talking about here today. This is from Spiritual Experiences, so grab your handy-dandy set and flip over to 1839, where we talk about an enveloping spiritual field and it's working on spirits. Right away, you're like, I nailed him. He's always putting stuff in the title that is not actually in the content, because you're talking about the spiritual field working on spirits instead of us. Hold that, because I got a feeling we've got these two things about to converge. And you'll be hearing running commentary from my daughter who's in the next room, and we've got her doing stuff, but she's excited. When you're that age, you're excited about life, so you're going to hear her chitting and chatting there. Just pretend that's a little bit of angelic chatter coming in. You may see elsewhere, here's the numbers if you want to look it up, that every spirit possesses his own field of energy. You could call it an aura or something like that, so that many spirits together, or societies of spirits, form a common field. Oh yeah, by the way, if you were hearing there's a baby doll in there that when you press it, it cries. And so she's playing with the baby doll. So it sounds like there's a crying baby. That's not who I'm talking about. That's just a doll. It's not sad. There were societies of good spirits. I digress. You're not here for my personal life. There were societies of good spirits, of angels, I believe, creating a field that I felt plainly, because I had been led into that field by the Lord. So we've got individual spirits with a field here, and then we've got the collective field, where the individual fields of a number of spirits. And these fields being, we did a show on them where you compare them to what people think of as auras. This is really your mind and heart emanating out. What you love and what you believe radiating out around you, as surely as how you smell in this world radiates out around you. So together, these all lead into a collective energy field, right? Okay, that's a good place to start. I did not understand anything of what they were thinking, but it was quite evident that it was good. Okay, hey, I don't get it, but I got a good feeling about it. And this is from this energy field of angels. But how those fields are to be understood is beyond description, because this happens by means of a general spiritual mental image, and consequently, they cannot be understood except by those who experience it. So you had to be there, but it's there. Certain kinds of spirits were introduced into a field of this kind, which can only be described as a realm of very pure thoughts that with my clear awareness surrounded my mind. And I love something about this. He's saying that, look, it's not just an aura of nothing, it's an aura of thoughts that Swedenborg, let's bring back stick figures. Swedenborg can be here. Swedenborg has like some kind of 18th century coat on or something. Right, let's give him his characteristic curls. People wore wigs back then. It was super cool. So he's here, and he's got there's a field of thoughts surrounding his mind. If you're getting into this, what is the spiritual landscape doing to affect what we're in here? So it's not just like here, there can be fields of smell or of heat and light. Think of what's coming out of the sun. But there can be like a radiating aura of thoughts that can catch you within it and change the way that you're thinking. They were speaking with me, and likewise were being moved by that field to speak differently than was their custom. That is, to speak in agreement with that energy field. So these are spirits who are of a certain character, who would usually be, thinking and feeling certain things, but because they're showing up within this, they are within this field as it moves through, that changes how they think. And just think about here on earth, maybe you know somebody, and you knew them as being in a certain way, but they get into a mood where they seem like a different person, or they get into a new crowd who all thinks a certain way, and they're starting to think that way. This is just showing the malleability of human beings. And Swedenborg is saying this, the influenceability, and that the spiritual side of things adds a new layer to that. Their speaking was more fluid than usual, and their understanding of the subjects more complete. For this is the influence of fields. Man. So you can actually get an upgrade. And you can definitely in life snap into states of, I get this more. I could do it when I'm trying to do this show. I will certainly have times when, let's say I'm chitting and chatting and talking, and then suddenly I'll feel like, somebody just turned the lights on. Like this is clicking better. I'm able to verbalize things better. Thoughts are coming faster. And I don't know how it happens. I just try to stay hydrated. But I think on any subject that any of us are talking about, we go through these rhythms. Could it be that these fields, just like outside, you feel a difference between when the sun is obstructed by clouds and then when those move and everything gets clearer? Are we going through that regularly in our minds? It is as if they are in a more intelligent or state or aura. There he uses the word aura, or translated, so to speak. So that I would learn about this matter, spirits with now a gentler, now a harsher speech were introduced into the same field, and they too spoke differently than usual. They were moved by the field not only as to the flow of their speaking, but also as to their understanding of matters. It sounds like almost like a science experiment that he's doing. So that's happening there. What is it like if you take this person, put him in this field? And that's something good to remember as we think of people, and perhaps we're thinking negatively about their character. And we think, man, this person is so abrasive or so difficult to deal with. Think about what field has got them caught in there, and what would it be like if a better field came through? That's an important concept, and to apply to yourself too, to realize we are, is it nature or nurture? There's some product of the stuff that's hardwired in us, or that we've really brought in there, but there's also the environment that we're in. And to just think of when you see somebody who you feel like, that person is really difficult to deal with, what would it be like if they got into a better field? Because it just frees up your concept to realize, they are not necessarily the mood that they're displaying. Fields, and I told you this was about us. Fields of this kind also act on people on earth. As is sometimes evident, how can we tell when we're in a field like this? As is sometimes evident from their conversations, as well as from a better or sharper understanding of matters they are thinking and speaking about. When are you on your game? When are you off your game? It's also evident from their mood. For every single thing adapts itself to the field. You can have a mood. You can have a way of being, an interpretation of life that can be influenced by these things. Why are we so scattered and irregular in how we feel about things and how we interpret things? Because the weather changes, man. Some others were also introduced into that field, so that I would understand what they were like. Yeah, definitely something's going on. Swedenborg is being educated here on, we're going to give you double-blind experiments, not quite that well laid out, so that you can see, so you can learn these principles. And this is what's cool about Swedenborg's spiritual experiences, is that there's really just this repetition and this careful documenting of how things change that gets us to these universal principles that he expresses. They were the kind who were trying from their own power to be innocent, which was an angelic field. At that time, their state of mind was portrayed to me. Okay, and so I'm just going on and on here about, it's so scientific, it's so regimented. Let's make it really weird. Let's just get some really weird results from it. At that time, their state of mind was portrayed to me as a little child, symbolizing innocence. So there's, in the spiritual world, there's a spontaneous imagery that accompanies things, who was throwing up milk out of its mouth. So a baby's puking, and this is representing these people who are trying to get into the sphere of innocence, which is the core of heaven, but doing it from self, meaning for their own gain, rather than from a genuine love of what innocence is. So it's like a baby puking. This condition that the field brings on those who put on innocence, trying to be innocent. This is the condition that field brings on those who put on innocence, trying to be innocent from their own power. They can tolerate it no more than those stomachs that cannot tolerate milk, lactose intolerant, when milk is poured into them, and because they cannot stand it, throw it up, just as the stomachs are apt to do of those who have indulged too much intoxicating beverage. So there is a picture there, correspondence there of trying to take something in when your system can't handle it. If your system is oriented towards, I'm going to try to go after the things of heaven, love and truth and all that, for selfish reasons, for not reasons that aren't about the good of the whole, the two aren't compatible. Which is just like if you see somebody carrying this banner of, yeah, I'm all about love and I'm doing it for self-serving reasons, eventually it's very distasteful. Later, spirits were let into that same field who tried to make themselves intelligent from their own power. So again, this own power, rather than turning to the divine, we're going to craft a way that we can get into this state of intelligence, which actually radiates from the divine. But the resulting condition of these was portrayed in their faces. They appeared sharp in the face, fairly good looking, and wearing a pointy cap. Is this weirder than the baby milk? I don't know. That went up to a sharp point. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you're trying to do that. And this is, I've said enough. This is the condition that field brings on spirits who try from their own power to bring themselves into intelligence and be spiritual from themselves. Everything in Swedenborg is sort of set up. Is it from self-interest or from love of use? Why are we doing it? Is it to advance our reputation or our standing in the human race, or to just accumulate pleasures? Or is it because we're having our hearts touched by God and learning to tap into this universal love? And the bottom one is artificial, the top one is genuine. And you can see this played out in the spiritual world. From this, it is plainly evident that the whole of heaven and earth in general and in particular are controlled by the field emanating from the Lord, and quite obviously protected against iniquities and wickedness, weakening their effectiveness. For there were evil spirits who, on entering the field, did not at all want to stay there, because it was disgusting to them and made them feel closed in, so they were obliged to withdraw. From this it can be understood that, among many other things, how evil spirits are constrained against entering into the human being of the universe. I'm assuming we're talking about the human being of the universe as the grand human, which is heaven, which we've talked about in many episodes of how all of heaven and all of the church, which means the internal state of wanting to do what's true and good, work together like all the systems in your body work together. And if you're entering into that as an evil spirit, which just means a spirit devoted to self over the common good, which is all that it is, to have something harmful in the body is something that's looking out for itself rather than the functioning of the whole. This is describing sort of an immune system for the human race. This field emanating out of God makes it more difficult for self-centered motives to come and try to attack us through these fields. Yeah, great. It's a lot. It's a lot. When I am speaking, thinking, or even writing while in one of these fields, earth application, as I am now, hey, this just got a little meta. Every detail goes according to the force of the field, and nothing whatever can be said or thought or written, not even the least jot, that does not harmonize with the field. I often wondered about the consistency. Why would I need to write that? The consistency. I'll get rid of it. In Swedenborg. And why is it that I can pick it up and just about everywhere feel like, oh yeah, this is the same brand, or this is the same story being told in all these different places. There's some kind of, he's arguing here that, look, there's a flow you can get into. It's not just you're out there picking out random thoughts and ideas from within your little mental store or whatever feeds the human. Like when you make an inquiry and say, what should I write next? And things pop into your mind. That actually depends on where you are, what neighborhood you're in, what flow you're in, what fields you're in spiritually, and that he's in some kind of field that is keeping integrity around what he's writing. The fact that energy fields surround people can be deduced by many considerations. even from things of nature, which are surrounded by fields without which they could never come to exist or remain intact. So there's some kind of field as well that allows biology here to flourish, that holds the physical world or animates the physical world and makes it responsive to things of the spirit. And it's a wonder that very learned people have not been observant in regard to fields. Swedenborg calling out the scientific community of his day, of which he was certainly a member, and probably, as he often does, calling out his own previous beliefs, which nevertheless show up clearly in many areas, and certainly in the individual members of the threefold kingdoms of nature. As a matter of fact, not the least particle exists that does not have its own field around it. So even down to an atom. And harmonizing parts make up a harmonious common field, agreeing with the parts. They are fields of all parts together, both of energy and of inertia, such as the fields of heat or of cold. These are even more distinct and extensive in the spiritual and heavenly realms, very obvious to those who are spiritual and heavenly. The takeaway there is patterns repeat. That should be, if we look down into the essence or the structure of all this weird out there stuff that Swedenborg is describing. I mean, what do we have in this episode? We had people being in a field that are spirits, and they get represented by a baby who's throwing up milk, and then they get another ones get represented by a cat. This is all very weird, and that these sort of thoughts and feelings can come in waves and change how people are. Sure, the output is weird, but if you look at what was the code that led to that, you would see the same kind of principles that are at work in physics of the physical world. I would think things like sociology and how human beings interact, that there is this repeated throughout the universe, because the universe is actually one big whole, rather than sort of, there's this physical stuff over here, but then there's the spiritual stuff over here. The field of the Lord, being truth itself and goodness itself, stretches out into the universe, embracing, encouraging, enlivening, and thus arranging all in the very least things. But this subject is too broad to be explainable in the most general way, even on countless sheets of paper. You might have thought we already have been going over countless sheets of paper on this subject, but no, he's saying this is the tip of the iceberg. And I want to end thinking about the field of the Lord, being truth itself and goodness itself. And, why can there be such chaos in our situation here? So it seems to be saying, look, if you think of this up here as this is the field of the Lord, that there is an intact experience that is the one the divine wants to give us all. And it's here, but we have to move into it. And so what we're trying to do by accumulating truths and living by them is shift our spiritual position so that we move out of the fields that are full of this disharmonious way of thinking, and we move into the field, the one field, truth and goodness. Like I said, not from self, meaning we're going to create some artifice, but we're tapping directly in to this source, and that getting more and more into the field and staying there is how. Wouldn't you love to have curated thoughts and feelings? Know that you are getting high quality material coming in. That's what we're working to do, to have this fill more and more up, so that we find ourselves guided and curated and given the options that we know are like, this is the really good stuff. This is really sourced well, and this is going to lead me in the right direction. No more confusing sort of, okay, what do I even do with this? To me, that is news from heaven. How'd you like it? Do you ever feel like you're caught up in a field? Let us know in the comments. I would love to hear, how do you guys apply this stuff to your life? And also, I would love to hear, any insights you have or any extra thoughts, because I find weighing this stuff in the mind produces more insights and tangible things you can apply. And we're all in slightly different fields right now. So the way that I absorb something and can think about it and express it is going to lead to one set of hopefully good things, and you can do it another way. And by the confluence of those in the middle, we get something really cool. Speaking of really cool stuff, you guys are making this show possible. If I could just bend your ear for a second, I have a quick message about how you can make this happen, and have been. This is a letter from our Director of Development, my good friend Tim. You may not know that we depend on donor support to create our programming, to share the insights and ideas contained in the writings of Emanuel Swedenborg. Well, we do. And we wanted to share an opportunity to support our recently established endowment fund, for Off the Left Eye. This is how we keep going. This fund provides us with the ability to offset the costs of production and staffing. Consider your ability to make a gift and visit otle.causevox.com and become part of our community of donors. This is how we make these videos that then hopefully go out and moved you in some way. Sorry to draw you like a weird box. And then by your supporting us, it allows us to move out and affect the next weird box person who might benefit as well. Thanks so much for hanging out. I hope that you have a really good day, and I hope that these insights that you've gotten from this show or anything in Swedenborg pop up and give you that extra lift when you're needing it. And I'll see you next time real soon.